How do we know when to end a serious relationship? Trying to choose between whether or not we're going to endure some of the most painful experiences we've ever felt, or if we're going to brave the wilderness of exploring what life might be without this person we spent so much time with. I've shared a lot of these same feelings, a tool that I used that helped give me a lot of clarity to make the decision that was best for me, which was Mira Kirshenbaum's Too Good to Leave, Too Bad to Stay. So diving into it, Mira's first piece of advice is actually to stop weighing the pros and cons. I know that feels really counterintuitive and really unorthodox because we might be having children, potentially buying homes, or have a wedding date planned and we need to make a decision. But Mira clarifies that weighing the pros and cons actually leads us into what she defines as the ambivalence trap. What do we do when we're confused? We get more information. When we gather all the information we can about our relationship to help us make a decision, we're still riddled with confusion and we don't feel that we have this sense of trust in our own decision-making abilities. And so we gather even more evidence and put it on the scale to try to balance the things out and make a decision one way or the other. But more information usually just leads to more confusion, leads to decision paralysis where we just remain unhappy in our relationship. Instead, start with a diagnostic approach, an approach where we take the most important factors and we continue to narrow it down until we have a greater understanding of the situation in greater detail. If an electrician comes in because your TV or device is broken, he's not going to rip it apart and try to figure out what's going on with a certain microchip or circuit board. Instead, he's going to look for power and see if it's plugged in or it needs plugged in. So in Mira's book, she presents a number of diagnostic questions that go from general deal breakers to more nuanced things, any of which could be the sign and the deal breaker that says we should leave the relationship. There were a few questions that really resonated with me. The first of which is question number 3. Have you already made a concrete commitment to pursue a course of action or lifestyle that definitely excludes your partner? Making these irrevocable commitments where we do something like putting a deposit on a single bedroom apartment or taking a job that would move us out of the city or across the country. Mira says that people who usually act in this way don't actually regret the decision and they should probably follow it through because they're really pointing themselves already in the right direction. But I also think it's really important to differentiate between these irrevocable actions and fantasies, because we might have these desires to do something like this, but we haven't done them yet. Personally, I think these fantasies and these thoughts might reflect needs and desires that aren't getting met, and so they're not actually signals to leave. As a matter of fact, they could actually be signals and moments of clarity of what you'll need to stay in your relationship. But even with that distinction, getting clarity on what we're feeling and needing in the relationship doesn't obviously set us up to actually get that met. Which brings me to diagnostic question number 7. Is it your experience that almost any need that you have gets obliterated? And if you ever do get what you want, is getting it such an ordeal that you don't feel it was worth the effort after all? I think so many of us can relate to the desire to have a greater amount of affection or care or want passion or curiosity from our partner. As we bring up issues, they can be met with criticism or defensiveness or aggression. The continued vocalization of trying to get our needs met and being disappointed by our partner's reaction gets internalized, and then we start feeling that we'll never actually have these needs met with this person. It's like our partner's holding up a sign that says, I don't care what your experience is and if this relationship feels good to you or not. This is where Mira highlights that communicating about our problems is really important, and the lack of it could be a deal breaker. The way she defines it is, it's the communication problem that prevents every other problem from being solved. This situation is really challenging because you can't change what's going unacknowledged. There's a blatant and willful ignorance that really minimizes your chances of being happy with the person that you're with. So if you're in this place where you're trying to talk to your partner about what's bothering you and they're unwilling to acknowledge your experiences in the relationship, your chances of becoming happy are really minimized, and it's probably best to end it with this person. And just like the last point, there is a caveat to this as well, because the inability to meet our needs is not the same as not acknowledging them. Just because you're not having your needs met does not mean that the relationship is hopeless. If you're bringing up issues that really bother you and your partner's responding in ways that are kind, compassionate, and empathetic, you do still have a fighting chance. And then at the same time, showing kindness and compassion without change behavior also doesn't solve the issue or the problem and the distress that you're feeling either. Which leads me to the next question, which is question number 16. Is there something your partner does that makes your relationship too bad to stay in, and that he acknowledges it, but for all intents and purposes, he's unwilling to do anything about it? Personally, I think in long-term relationships, it's really important to recognize and acknowledge the frequency and the difference between intent and impact. Someone's intent is really just their aim, their hope, their desire for what they hope to do and what they hope that you experience in the relationship, whereas their impact is how they really make you feel and what they really do regardless of what their intention was in the first place. In long-term relationships, if we're continually overlooking the impact somebody has on us, eventually it can become self-abandoning, where we put our perceptions of being with a partner who cares over our own needs, and we protect them at the cost of ourselves. Our partners can apologize and make excuses and rationalizations and justifications about why they impact us the way that they did, all without little accountability. So it's really important to bring in accountability with requests for change behavior that is both measurable and observable. Being able to specify exactly what it is that we want through something that's measurable and observable makes the behavior that we're looking for more objective. It makes it so that there's more clarity about how this person that we love can meet our needs. And with that, it creates a sort of structure, a love cup that then we create that allows us to be filled up more easily and more tangibly that our partners can then pour into. And then if they don't, then we have greater clarity on their abilities or their willingness to do so, and then that might be our warning sign to realize that this relationship isn't sustainable because either they can't or they won't do that for us. Mira does a fantastic job in her book at presenting these questions, and there's over 30 of them in her book, so I highly suggest you check them out. But if you're wanting a bit more detail into how to have these constructive conversations that can rebuild connection and help articulate what it is that we're needing to our partner, I definitely suggest you watch this video here.